My name is Mary, and I come from a small town in the Philippines. I was only 19 years old when I married a man named Daniel. At the start, he was gentle with me, and my parents thought he was a good choice. He lived in the United States, and after our wedding, I was supposed to move with him. I was frightened. I had never left my hometown before. I had never been on an airplane, and my English was very poor. I cried so much before I left. I didn't want to leave my family, especially my mother. She meant the world to me. We talked every single day. She always lifted me when I was sad. She cooked food I loved, told me jokes, and hugged me warmly. I could not imagine a life without her. Before the trip, Daniel stayed with my family for 3 weeks. He was quiet, spoke little, and kept to himself, but I thought maybe he was just shy. After those 3 weeks, it was time to go. I packed my clothes and a few photographs of my family. My mother gave me a silver bracelet and said, "Wear this to remember me. Stay strong, my daughter." I hugged her tightly, crying so much. She cried as well, and I had never seen her look so broken. Saying goodbye felt like someone was tearing my heart into pieces. We boarded the plane to New York. The flight was long, and I felt sick. My eyes were swollen from crying, and my stomach hurt. Daniel barely spoke to me during the trip. He kept staring out the window. I already felt lonely. When we finally landed, it was winter. Snow was falling, and the cold air bit my skin. It was my first time seeing snow. It was beautiful, but I could not enjoy it because sadness weighed me down. Daniel's father picked us up at the airport. His name was Mr. Harris. His face was serious, and he didn't smile. Daniel's mother, Mrs. Harris, stayed at home to cook, he said. Their house in New Jersey was small, dark, and quiet. I went to the room that was prepared for us and sat on the bed. My heart felt heavy. I missed my home already. That night, I could not sleep. My mind was filled with thoughts of my mother, my father, and my two younger brothers. I wanted to run back to them, but I knew I couldn't. I was now married, and this was my new life. The next morning, Mrs. Harris called me to the kitchen. She handed me a list of chores and said, "Clean the living room, wash the dishes, cook rice, and don't be lazy." Her tone was cold. I didn't understand every word, but I understood enough. I realized she didn't see me as a daughter-in-law, but more like a servant. I worked all day until my back hurt and my hands became rough from the cold water. Daniel did not help me. He just sat with his father, drinking coffee and watching TV. When I asked Daniel if I could rest, he said, "My mom likes things clean. Just try harder." Every day was the same. I woke up early, cooked, cleaned, and stayed silent. I didn't know how to refuse. I didn't know how to use my voice. I was too afraid to make anyone angry. Mr. Harris had a loud voice, and if I made even a small mistake, he shouted. Once I burned the rice, and he yelled so hard that I locked myself in the bathroom and cried for an hour. Weeks went by, and I grew more and more unhappy. I no longer laughed. I no longer smiled. I only spoke to Daniel, and even he stopped listening to me. I missed my family terribly. I wanted to call my mother, but Daniel said international calls were expensive. He told me I could call her only once a month. I waited for that one call as if it were gold. I always cried when I heard her voice. I lied to her, saying, "I'm fine, Mama," Everything is okay. But it wasn't. Nothing was okay. After 3 months, I discovered I was pregnant. My feelings were mixed. I was happy yet also afraid. I thought maybe this would bring good change. Maybe Daniel's family would welcome the baby, and maybe Daniel would show me love. But nothing changed. Mrs. Harris only said, "Now you must work harder. Strong women work even when they are pregnant." She gave me no rest. I worked with a heavy body and an aching heart. Daniel continued to obey his parents and never defended me. When I vomited in the mornings, he simply said, "Rest after you finish the work." One day, I nearly fainted in the kitchen. My head spun, my body shook, and I dropped to the floor. Tears filled my eyes. I was exhausted, lonely, and terrified. That night, I touched my stomach and whispered to my unborn child, "You are not alone. I will protect you. I will be strong for you." That tiny life inside me gave me hope. I began to dream about a better future. I wanted to learn English, get a job, earn money, and buy my own home where no one could scream at me. I wanted to escape from living in fear. When my baby was born, it was a boy. I named him Adrian. He had large brown eyes and soft dark hair. When I held him, I felt stronger than ever before. I thought, this is my son. I will guard him no matter what. But even with Adrian's arrival, things didn't improve. I was left to care for him completely on my own. Mrs. Harris said, "He is your baby, not mine." Daniel returned to work after a few weeks, and I stayed home with Adrian. I barely slept. I often skipped meals, but I kept pushing forward. At night, I still cried while holding my mother's silver bracelet, whispering, "I miss you, Mama. Please be okay. I will stay strong." That first year with Adrian was the hardest. I was constantly tired, waking up many times during the night to feed him. In the mornings, I still had to clean and cook. Nobody helped me. Sometimes I felt less like a person and more like a tool, there only to serve. Mrs. Harris never smiled at Adrian. She refused to hold him or play with him. She would only say, "Babies are noisy. Keep him quiet." Mr. Harris mostly stayed silent, but his eyes told me I was not welcome. One night, Adrian caught a fever. I didn't know what to do. I begged Daniel to take us to a doctor, but he shrugged, still watching TV. "He will be fine. Just give him water," he said. I was terrified. I cradled my baby all night, praying for him. I longed to call my mother, but it wasn't time yet for my monthly call. Sitting alone in the dark, I whispered, "Mama, I love you. I need you." That night, something changed inside me. I realized I couldn't wait for others to rescue me. I had to rescue myself and my child. I looked in the mirror and told myself, "You're a mother now. You must fight." I searched for ways to learn English. Nearby, there was a small community center offering free classes. I told Daniel I wanted to attend. At first, he refused, saying, "You are too busy." But I didn't stop asking. After many days, he agreed, only for 2 days a week. I was thrilled. In class, I sat with women from many countries: Mexico, India, Egypt, and others. At first, I was shy, but I listened closely. I learned phrases like, "I need help," "I want water," and "my baby is sick." Each word gave me a little more strength. Our teacher, Miss Laura, was kind and patient. She always said, "You are smart, Mary. Don't stop learning." Her words stayed in my heart. No one had called me smart in a long time. At home, I began practicing English. Daniel didn't care. He only said, "Do what you want." Mrs. Harris disliked it, saying, "Why are you pretending to be someone you're not?" But I didn't stop. I was learning for Adrian, for myself, and for our future. A few months later, Miss Laura told me there was a part-time job opening at a bakery nearby. I was nervous. I had never worked outside the house before. I asked Daniel if I could try. He laughed and said, "You won't last a week." But I went anyway. The bakery was small but warm, filled with the smell of fresh bread. The owner, Mrs. Grace, was gentle and showed me how to serve coffee, bag bread, and talk to customers. My English was shaky, but I smiled and tried. People were patient. I worked 3 hours a day while Adrian stayed with Daniel or Mrs. Harris. Every dollar I earned, I saved. With my own money, I bought a winter coat and a small toy for Adrian. For the first time, I felt proud of myself. Work gave me hope. I began to dream about having a full-time job one day, renting my own apartment, and living without fear. But then something terrible happened. One evening, Daniel came home drunk. He shouted, banged furniture, and woke Adrian. I begged him to be quiet, but he grew angry and shoved a chair. Terrified, I grabbed Adrian and ran into the bedroom, locking the door. I sat on the floor shaking, realizing we were not safe. The next morning, I told Mrs. Harris what happened. She looked at me coldly and said, "You made him angry. Don't talk so much." My heart shattered again. A week later, Mr. Harris and Daniel argued about money. I stood quietly in the kitchen, holding Adrian. Suddenly, Mr. Harris turned to me and said, "If you don't like it here, you can leave, but the boy stays." My blood turned cold. "What do you mean?" I asked. He said, "This is Daniel's family. The child stays with us." I felt my legs weaken. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. That night, I hugged Adrian close and whispered, "No one will ever take you from me." That month, I finally told my mother the truth during our call. I cried and cried. She cried too. She begged me, "Come home, Mary. We will help you." But I couldn't. I had no money, no legal way to bring Adrian out, no safe plan. I was stuck. Still, I refused to give up. I kept attending classes, working more hours at the bakery, and slowly saving. I bought a secondhand phone with my earnings and started talking with other women at work. They told me about support groups for women like me. For the first time, I felt less alone. 2 years passed since I had arrived in America. Life was still difficult, but I was not the same girl anymore. Adrian, now 2 years old, laughed, talked, and ran everywhere. He was the light in my life. At the bakery, I had become one of the trusted workers. Mrs. Grace gave me more hours and even asked me to help with simple paperwork. My English was not perfect, but I could understand and speak much better. I also began to meet women from other countries with stories like mine. One of them, Rosa, became my close friend. She told me, "You are stronger than you think." Rosa invited me to a women's support group that met at a church every Saturday. Nervous, I went. The room was full of women from Asia, Africa, and South America. A kind woman named Helen led the group. She spoke gently and listened carefully. When it was my turn, I shared my story. My voice shook and I cried, but nobody judged me. They nodded and understood. After that, I returned every week. I grew braver. Helen helped me connect with free legal aid services. They explained my rights. They told me, no one can take your child from you. You have the right to be safe. That night, I thought about my whole journey, the shouting, the cold looks, the silence, the fear. I asked myself, why do I keep hiding? Why do I pretend I'm fine? Something inside me shifted. I knew it was time to take a step forward. With Helen's help, I applied for a small apartment for single mothers. It was near the bakery. I saved enough for the first month's rent. When the day came, I packed quietly while Daniel was at work. I took Adrian's clothes, his toys, my few belongings, and my mother's bracelet. Mrs. Harris saw me leaving. She smirked and said, "You'll come back. You need us." But I knew I would never return. Our new apartment was small but bright. It had 2 rooms and a window where the sun shone in. I laid out a mat on the floor for Adrian, placed a blanket, and sat down. Tears streamed from my eyes, but this time they were tears of freedom. For the first time in years, I could breathe. At first, it was still hard. I worked, cooked, cleaned, and cared for Adrian alone. But I was used to that. The difference was no one yelled at me. No one made me feel worthless. I was free. A few months later, I received a letter from home. My mother had passed away. My heart broke into pieces. I cried for days, remembering her voice, her hugs, her words telling me to be strong. Guilt ate me. I hadn't visited her, hadn't called her enough. But then I remembered her final gift, the bracelet, and her words, "Be brave." Holding Adrian close, I whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm trying. I'll keep going." After that, I made a promise. I would live fully for her, for Adrian, and for myself. Months passed. I continued working and saving. Adrian started daycare, where he learned songs, colors, and words. I watched him grow with pride. At the bakery, Mrs. Grace said, "You have come such a long way, Mary. One day, you could manage this place." I smiled, not fully believing her, but a small part of me wondered if maybe she was right. Daniel tried to contact me a few times. He called and said, "Come back. Adrian needs his father." I answered kindly but firmly, "No. You had your chance. I'm doing what's best for us." Even now, the memories of my past hurt. Sometimes I cry, but no longer from fear. Now I cry from healing, from remembering, from strength. Life is still not easy, but when I wake each morning and see Adrian asleep beside me, I smile. I rise, make tea, and begin my day. This is our life. Simple, honest, and ours. I am not rich. I don't have everything, but I have freedom. I have peace. I have a son who loves me. I have friends who support me, and I have myself. And for me, that is enough.